Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sara Newman, and I'm so happy you're joining me for this episode of Saturday with Sara. This week, I'm excited to show you a really pretty collection from our friends at Uniquely Creative called Daydream. We have pattern papers and coordinating die cuts to go along, and in today's Money Saver, we also have this set of floral cutting dies from Paper Wishes called Meadow Blooms. And these coordinate perfectly with our springtime floral theme. So let's take a closer look at what we'll be working with today, and we can start with our pattern papers. So here's the collection. You will have 32 single-sided sheets of 6x6 pattern papers. You'll have 2 each of 16 different designs. And as we flip through here, I think you can see this really beautiful watercolor style of pattern papers. You will have some really gorgeous imagery in here. You also have some really nice kind of faux texture patterns which work beautifully for matting and layering. This is one of my favorites. Here's another one. Then you also have several sheets with cutout images on here too. So nice and easy to cut out. You can add those as accents for the front or the inside of your card. You've got some nice sentiments in here as well. And as you can see, everything is designed to coordinate perfectly. Really sweet little tags up here, and then our final design. So this is the pattern paper pack. Again, you have 32 sheets in this collection. Then to go along, we also have a pack of 50 matching die cuts. Now you have many duplicates of these designs, and so I've spread them out onto this sheet so that you can really see them. Lots of sentiments in here, some nice labels. You've also got some beautiful images, again, perfect for the front of your card or for the inside. And these are also a really nice sturdy cardstock weight, perfect for layering. Then to go along for even more fun, we have the Meadow Blooms die set. Now this has 6 metal dies and they are perfectly petite, so they go along with the 6x6 pattern paper pack. You have flowers. You also have some really nice foliage accents in here too. And they just work beautifully for cards of any theme. Of course, being hot off the press, you're going to have a card project idea on the back of the package. So as you can see, we have got a lot of really fun supplies to work with today, and I'm really glad that you're here. I'm super excited to explore the creative possibilities with you. So come play with us. Let's begin with this fun card, which combines the pattern papers, the die cuts, plus some fun silver sequin cardstock and some easy distressing using dye-based ink. So first, let's start off with our background. So this is the sheet from the paper pack, and I wanted to add a little bit more faux texture to the design. So I splattered the sheet with ink, and it's a very fine misting effect here. Pretty subtle, but I'll show a close-up photo of this in the photo gallery and you can see this a little bit better. But it definitely does add to a vintage distressed look on this already beautiful sheet of paper. So to do this technique, you need a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to bring in a piece of just plain white cardstock because I think it can show up a little bit better if you're working on something bright. Now I'm also working on my craft mat for this. This is going to be really important because with a watery medium, you can not only use your craft mat as a palette, but it also protects your work surface. Then you're going to need your dye-based ink. Very important that it's dye-based and not a permanent ink pad. A dye-based ink pad gives you the option of mixing with water to create this effect. So I'm using the charcoal ink from Hunky Dory, although any of their gorgeous colors will also work. Then another thing that you'll need to have on hand, of course, is some water. And I've got mine in a little water mister, and this is what I'm going to use on my palette. Then, of course, you need something to spatter your ink with. And you've got a couple of different options. So we have here a water brush, and I'm not using the water brush the way you're supposed to, which is to fill the barrel of the brush with water. Instead, I'm just using it as a paintbrush, and I love my water brushes. I have a lot of them, and I use them for this technique a lot. The other thing that you can use for this technique is the Distress Splatter Brush, and you can see this has some nice long bristles on there, and this is going to give you a really soft, fine effect. You can get some bigger blotches of color when you're using the water brush. So let's take a look at both of those techniques. Okay, we can start with our water brush. So again, I'm going to use my craft mat as my palette. And to do this, I'm just going to take my ink and I'm going to squash some color down here onto my craft mat. And then I'll move aside my paper and I'm going to mist a little bit right next to my ink. Not into the ink because sometimes that can cause it to kick back, maybe ways you don't want to. So then I'll just add my water into the ink, and you can see I've got a nice watery wash going on here. And I'm just going to pick this up with the bristles of my water brush. I'm going to hold my brush perpendicular to the surface of my cardstock and with one hand, and then with the other hand I'm going to tap the barrel of this, so right about here. And there you can see that wonderful splattering. And you can see also that I got some nice big blotches on there too. So then all I need to do is let this dry and I can use it on my project. Now, how about that Distress Splatter Brush? Well, I'll bring in another piece of white cardstock and we can see the difference. So with the Distress Splatter Brush, how I like to use this is by simply drawing my finger across the top of the bristles here. So I'll pick up my color on the bristles, on the tips of those bristles, and then again holding this right up against my cardstock, maybe a couple of inches away. I'm going to angle this down a bit and then simply draw my finger across those bristles. And you can see that this is giving me a finer misting effect. I'm going to clean off my finger for a second, and then I'm also going to clean up this ink here. This is the beauty of the craft mat. And then I can bring in my other piece, and you can see the two side by side. So if you want a bigger pattern of dots, then I would suggest you go with the water brush. If you want something finer, then try the splatter brush. I think both of them look really nice. I use the splatter brush for my card project, and that's why I've got this really fine sort of detailed effect on there, which is nice and subtle. So then on the front of my card here, once I've dried the splattering on my pattern paper, I've added my elements on top. And I'm using one of the photo frames, which I've backed with this really soft, subtle, kind of faux texture patterned paper from the collection. And then I've added in some other elements here too. So I've popped up the frame on foam tape and accented it with the bird die cuts and also this cutout sentiment from the paper pack. The leaves are cut from champagne sequin cardstock, and I have to show you this. I just love this stuff. So this is the champagne glitter and this is the silver glitter, and I'm using both of these in today's webisode. What I love about this is that it's a no shed sequin glitter cardstock. It has this really gorgeous finish and it cuts easily with scissors, with a paper trimmer, or with cutting dies. And in fact, let me show you this foliage piece here. It just die cuts really beautifully. And you can use it in little bits, like with the strip going across the center, or for little die cut elements. It also comes in other colors. So you've got a bronze, you have a black, and you have the gold. All of these come as 8.5 by 11 sheets. So you've got quite a bit to work with, especially if you use it in little bits like I like to do here. So then the sequin cardstock is going across the center as well as with those foliage pieces. Some of those foliage pieces are tucked underneath the frame and kind of incorporated with all of the other elements on here too. Then for the card inside, I have another piece of patterned paper from the collection. This is also splattered with charcoal, and you can see the bigger dots here using the water brush. And then I've also added that today is your day die cut plus a trio of foliage die cuts made with the Meadow Bloom set. Our next card features layers of patterned papers and more silver sequin cardstock. The focal is a really simple collage of a butterfly die cut from the collection, plus a trio of die cut foliage, and then the Hello Sentiment, which is a cutout from the paper pack. So I've die cut this pink patterned paper, and that's what I'm using as the basis for my focal. And then I foam taped it onto a rectangle die cut from silver sequin cardstock, and then onto a corresponding white cardstock rectangle. And the dimension from the foam tape in all of these layers, I think you can see this, it really helps to make a clean and simple focal stand out from the patterned background paper. So once again, this beautiful background paper, one of my favorites from the collection. And of course, all of these elements just go together so easily. Now for my layering, I'm using one of my favorites. This is the 12 rectangles and scalloped cutting dies from Hot Off the Press. Mine are all stored in a sheet protector because I use this so often, it just never gets put away from my work surface. So those are always out and about. And I really do like using them for creating a spotlight area for my focals. I also like using the same die set to create scalloped borders like I have here. So let's take a look at this. I usually use the largest of the scalloped rectangles. You can see I've got some residual tape on here. That's how often I use them. And all you need to do is just take your cardstock. In this case, I'm using some white cardstock, but for my card, I use that sequin cardstock. Simply place this down, use your low tack tape from Hunky Dory. This is what I always have on hand. And then just secure this in place and run this through your die cutting machine. So you only need to go this far. You don't need to run the whole thing through. And then you'll have a piece that looks like that. So from here, you can use this in combination with your other cardstock or pattern paper and just nest that right on top. And you have a really nice scalloped border. Quick and easy to do. And it does create a really nice effect on your cards, especially with borders like this that then can coordinate with your mats in there. So that's what I've got here, top and bottom, and then backing the scalloped edges is some light pink pattern paper. Then for my card inside, I have a piece of striped pattern paper from the collection, plus this really fun corner accent. So let's have a look at this. This is one of the cutouts from the collection. So you just trim this out with your scissors and then fold along the lines here. Now to do this, I usually grab a straight edge, like a ruler, and then kind of run this up along the edge there, and then flip it over. You might use a bone folder to really secure that down, and then from there you can simply add this onto the corner of your cardstock or paper, and that forms a little pocket there. And so what I've done here is I've used that pocket to create a sort of semi-circle frame for my floral images, but of course you could then also tuck in a message, maybe a gift card or some other note or money gift in there. So that's a nice way of creating a little presentation. Now for my flowers and my foliage on here, of course, this is from our Meadow Blooms collection. And what I've done here is I've layered some of these floral images together. So what you do here, simply die cut two of one image. So for example, here I've got the flower die cut from green cardstock, and I've die cut the entire piece, even though I only want the stem showing. And then I die cut the same image, just the top, and I've used some of the pink patterned paper from the collection. And then I just use my scissors to kind of trim that off. And then I'll glue this on top of this to create this. So it's a really easy way to create flowers in all different color combinations. Now the cardstock that I used for the green on here comes from let me grab it here. It's the Whispering Florals cardstock pack. And I use that throughout today's webisode because not only do you have these beautiful pastel shades in here that match the pattern paper collection perfectly, you also have 3 green shades which go really nicely when you're working with different stems and leaves and foliage like I have in here. So I've got nice shades of green here, and then I've also got those really pretty floral tops as well. And I'm die cutting the flowers from this sheet of pattern paper, which you can see it's got some dark pink, it's got some light. So I'm able to create a light flower from this area over here and a darker kind of shaded blossom from this area here. So really nice to have the options for that with your cards. And so then I've got a nice little pocket in there for my flowers and or something else, maybe another nice little message. Okay, I have another card project that I want to show you, and this one is also using the cutting die border trick, and this time it is with the champagne sequin cardstock. So a really beautiful golden tone there. And I've also added some thin line dazzles going along the edge there, and this is from sheet. Yours will look different. Obviously, I've used parts and pieces of mine, but you can see you've got a variety of different styles of those thin line borders. You've got some with a pattern or decoration to them. You also have some just straight ones, and that's what I've used just right up along the edge of my borders, and that just creates another finishing touch there, another nice bit of polish on there. My card front is covered with polka dot pattern paper, and then I have a really fun focal with another one of the photo frame die cuts. Plus I have this really large hello message. I've got 2 butterflies, and then I've also got a flower which is die cut from the champagne cardstock, the champagne sequin cardstock. And I want to show you this flower die because I think this is a great example of how beautifully that sequin cardstock will die cut, because this is fairly detailed. As you can see here, it's got all of these really beautiful and thin lines on here. You might not think that sequin cardstock would die cut so nicely from that, but it does, nicely and easily too. So I've got this kind of tucked up here on top of the photo frame and then underneath the sentiment there. And I've got a little bow tied in 1/8 inch ribbon to complete the look. And then for my card inside, I have some more pattern paper. I have a layered rectangular area for a written message, plus the foliage die cut elements here, again from those green cardstock shades. And then I've got a couple of die cut elements here as well. Our final card project is using a new to me die, the Vase pop-up die. So when I open the card, I have this really fun pop-up element that I can decorate with flowers from the Vase die and with other flowers too. So let's take a look at how to create the pop-up, and then we can go to the rest of the card design. So here is the die that I'm working with. And as you can see on here, you've got a variety of dies included in the package. So you have your vase, you have your anchor, and then you have an assortment of accessory items. So those can be used with the vase. And I thought I'd just die cut these out from plain black cardstock so you can see the size and the shapes here. Now what you can't see on the black, but you can see on the package, are the detail embossed lines that are on the flowers and the leaves, which means that if you like to use a blending brush and some dye-based inks to go over those embossed lines, then you can create some really nice dimension on there. The other thing I really like about this set is that these elements can coordinate with the Meadow Blooms dies. So that's what I've done on my card. You can mix and match the leaves and the foliage and the flowers too. So that gives you a little bit more bang for your buck. I always like mixing and matching my dies when possible. So here on the front of the package, you've got a project idea, so a front and then the inside, you can see there. On the back of the package, hot off the press always includes the written instructions as well as your folding and your gluing diagram. And I like that they include a second look at the project idea so that you've got everything really together in one place. And then, of course, in the pocket, that's where your dies are. And if you're like me, you keep all of your dies together with the instructions, and it does help to keep that craft room just a little bit more organized. So then from here, what I've done is die cut out my vase and then also the anchor. And you can see here that I've added some tape on here already. So for the anchor, you'll just need a little bit of double-sided tape on each of the short ends. For pop-up dies like this, I really recommend the extra sticky tape because a pop-up die does have a lot of movement to it, so you want to make sure that that's secure and in place. So either short end of the anchor, and then a little bit on each of these two tabs. When I flip this over, you can see I've also got a little bit here on this tab. Now all of your folding is also going to be indicated on the package as well, but these are all scored so that everything will fold up really easily on the vase. There's no folding to do on the anchor. So then what I'm going to do is bring in my blank card. You can see I've already got a head start here for us. What you'll want to do is take a look at your orientation place. So you'll want to go about an inch up from the bottom of your card and then also indicate 7/8 of an inch from the fold of the card. So I'm working with a 5 by 6.5 inch card blank from hot off the press, and there's a pre-scored fold line in the center there. So what you'll do is remove the liner from that short tab and position this right up next to the fold of the card. And then your vase is going to do a little bit of a backflip. So you've got that score line here. And then what you'll do is bring in your anchor, remove the liners from that, simply position that right up next to the large portion of your vase. And you can see that you've got a little bit of a space here. And then from there, keeping in mind that you've got your 7/8 of an inch marked on there, you're going to do another bit of a backflip. And I'm going to remove the liners from these pieces of tape. This is always the hardest part of the project, is getting those liners off, especially if you don't have fingernails. So bear with me. I always do a dummy run, what I call a dummy run, with all of my fabulous folded dies. So I die cut all of the pieces out from scrap cardstock so that I can make sure that I have everything in place before I work with my real cardstock or paper. Okay, so I've got the liners off of those. And then what I'm going to do, keeping in mind the 7/8 of an inch mark, I'm going to flip this over. It's going to be bowed, and then I'm going to position that in place. So I've got my vase going like so. And then that way, when my card closes, it can lie flat, but then I've got that movement mechanism on there so that I'm able to create a really fun pop-up design there too. Okay, let me show you the card again, and we can take another look here at the pop-up. Now, I've die cut this from pink cardstock, and then I've also used a bit of pattern paper over just the front portion of the vase. I've also added the Celebrate You cutout from the paper pack. And you can see here I've got a mixture of the leaves from both the vase and the Meadow Blooms die selection. I've also got my really pretty little Queen Anne's lace. I've got a flower in here as well. I've got a little bit of that champagne sequin cardstock also going along here. And then for the front of my card, I've got a combination of two pattern papers divided by a strip of sequin cardstock. So you see how effective this is in just little bits. And then my focal is a combination of the floral die cuts here. I've got some layered up plus leaves from both the vase and the meadow blooms cutting dies. And that is our final card project of the day today. So a very big thanks to our friends at Uniquely Creative for this very fun collection. And a special thanks to you for joining me today. We're really glad you're here, and we're happy you're a part of the Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, see this webisode on paperwishes.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, have a look in the description box below this video. You'll find a link that will take you to our Paper Wishes webisodes page, and you can see everything I just mentioned. If you enjoyed our video today, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up. It helps people to find our channel. And don't forget to subscribe. We create 3 to 5 videos each week, so there's always something fun to inspire your creative spirit.